McDonald Hall has a new name, answering a call for change that came more than a year ago. The move aims to acknowledge the harm that the first Prime Minister did to the Indigenous community. CBC's Katerina Georgieva joins us now. Kat, how did we get here?
Well, Chris, this has been a year in the making. A petition was created last year calling for this change because of the role that John A. McDonald played in the creation of the residential school system. And that carries an even heavier weight this week after what we've learned about 215 bodies of children found at a former residential school in Kamloops. Now, some say that they are satisfied that this name change is finally happening, but they say that there is more work that needs to be done.
I think it's nice that they're renaming it. That is, but my anger is still there.
McDonald Hall has a new name, Residence Hall West. An important step, but it doesn't erase the pain.
This building is such a shrine to what Canada upholds, and it is a constant reminder of what my ancestors and I are subjected to within Canada.
A plaque will be erected in front of the building to explain the change.
I think it's super important that we don't try to erase history, that we acknowledge it and we say this is what happened.
A committee was formed to consider the name change last year after this petition was formed. Through consultation, 460 people wrote in messages like
how this name, living in a residence hall as an Indigenous person, how that can affect you. To realize that you have this building named after someone who was willing to enact policies to ensure the eradication of Indigenous people in Canada.
Compassion for that led to the decision. Even though announced this morning, days after the tragic news out of Kamloops, those involved say approval of the change came earlier this year. Why not sooner?
We were aware that it's a very important decision, not just for the university, but in a sense, how is the country going to come to terms with this past that we're all not so proud of? We took a long time to deliberate, to think about it.
There are also calls that the building should have received an Indigenous name, but officials say the building needs repairs and might be decommissioned soon. They didn't want to give it an important name only to have it come down. All the while, the timing of this can't be understated. A step towards reconciliation at a time when Indigenous people are grieving.
It is heartbreaking to know that those families never knew or didn't know where their children were. That is heartbreaking.
Even though non-Indigenous Canadians may not understand it, you need to honor what's going on with us and in our community.
Just the physical abuse and the idea that these are children, that's really hard. It's incredibly hard. And Chris, the law student who I spoke with, she says that the school has a lot more work to do in order to make Indigenous people feel safe and valued on campus. And that's something that the school says that they are committed to doing. And in terms of further steps, the school says it will be reconsidering the names of other buildings as well. And I'm told that Vanier Hall, Laurier Hall might be on that list for consideration. And this is also happening on the heels of the John A. McDonald statue being brought down from the downtown core of Charlottetown in PEI. So really, it's this moment of reckoning as the country grapples with the truth of what happened at residential schools. Chris.
Thanks, Kat. CBC's Katerina Georgieva live tonight. Wheatley still under a state of emergency after a gas leak found. Today, the Windsor hazmat team visited the area, found the levels of the gas has reduced.
We still have no real indication where the gas has come from. We have no indication for the causes of the gas leak. And right now, we continue to work with local and provincial partners to try and find a solution to actually investigate and work out where this gas has come from over the past few days.
With that said, they aren't much of a position to do anything. The gas leak has displaced dozens of people, shut down businesses. Yesterday, crews detected a presence of hydrogen sulfide, which is both toxic and flammable. The crews have set up a safety zone and evacuated the area. Still no set time when people can return to their homes or their businesses. Today's COVID update, 16 new cases in Windsor-Essex reported. 162 cases of COVID-19 are active. About 57% involve more contagious variants of concern. Vaccinations, they're opening up a little earlier for those 70 and up. They can book their second shot appointment starting tomorrow, but they have to have had their first shot on March 31st or before. That's for now because the size of that population is pretty big. The health unit says that things are going well, but there are things we still need to watch out for.
So as much as the threat will continue to exist because the pandemic is still raging in some parts of the world, because of the connectedness, there will be more travel, there will be more opportunity for the virus to replicate. And every time the virus is replicating, there is a chance that it would turn into a mutant variant, which makes the vaccine ineffective or less effective. So the threat will always be there, and we can only prevent this threat by continuing to remember some of the things that we've been talking about all along.
Those things, having a high vaccination rate of both doses. If you're sick, stay home and keep physical distance as best as you can while we start opening up. A new deal between the federal government and Pfizer will see millions more doses of vaccines heading to Canada later this year. Ottawa announcing today that it's negotiated an option with the mRNA vaccine maker for an extra 3 million doses. The delivery would happen in September. The Prime Minister says the government remains on track to meet its target of inoculating everyone who wants the vaccine by the end of September. Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens met with Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu this afternoon about his plan to hold vaccinations inside the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel. But as Dale Molnar reports, the mayor says not much came of it.
After meeting with Patty Hajdu this afternoon, Drew Dilkens had this to say.
I have very little hope that anything will change after my meeting with the minister.
He told Power and Politics this afternoon.
There were certainly a lot of the same talking points about over 20 million doses in Canada and more doses arriving. And if we're all just patient, in a few months from now, we'll all have being fully vaccinated. At the same time, I also know 2 kilometers away from me, they threw 35,000 doses in the garbage.
Windsor Regional Hospital CEO David Mouche says even though Canada is getting a share of vaccines from the States, he says we need more and supports the mayor's plan.
Again, this concept of getting Canadians to the border to get vaccines is critical.
The manager of the American side of the tunnel wouldn't comment on Dilkens' plan. A hospital CEO in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, says the vaccines are an asset of the federal government and can't be shared with Canadians. But a spokesperson with the Michigan Pharmacists Association isn't sure if the pharmacists have to ask permission to give excess doses to Canadians or not. CBC has put in a request with Michigan's Chief Deputy Director for Health and Human Services for clarification. Meanwhile, Ontario's Health Minister and Solicitor General have sent a letter to Federal Public Safety Minister Bill Blair and Hajdu demanding the federal government develop a better border strategy that is consistent with land, sea, and air border travel. That is to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 variants coming into the country. Speaking on behalf of the government, Milton MPP Parm Gill agrees Canada needs to make sure Canadians get vaccinated more quickly, even if it means doing it the mayor's way.
And I think anyway, anybody can get vaccinated, whether it's this side of the border or the other side of the border or somewhere in between. We need to do everything we can to vaccinate as many people as possible and protect individuals from these deadly variants.
Dilkens is pledging to continue to try to procure doses of the vaccine from Michigan. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Starting now, air passengers entering Canada who refuse to follow public health requirements face higher fines. Those who decline a COVID-19 test or refuse to check into a quarantine hotel now face a $5,000 fine for each offense. The previous fine was $2,000. Last week, a government advisory panel said Ottawa should scrap the hotel requirement and allow people to arrange their own quarantine. It said some people are simply bypassing the rules by just paying the fines. Despite that advice, the government is keeping the restriction in place until at least June 21st. Things are literally heating up here in Windsor-Essex. A heat warning has been issued by the health unit, the city taking action to give people a place to cool off. With more, I'm joined live by CBC's Sanjay Maru. Sanjay, what's the city preparing for this sting of hot water, wet weather that we're about to get?
I'll tell you, the heat causing some discombobulation for myself. I got some sweat on my forehead. It is truly a hot day, but the city is prepping the aquatic center. The heat going to be too much for some people. More on that in just a second. But first, I want to touch on the numbers here. Colette Kennedy will join us later in the show. She's going to do a better job breaking down the forecast than I ever could. But according to Environment Canada, they're forecasting highs in the 30s for the next 5 to 7 days. days. As for the lows, we're looking at the 20s, so don't expect the lows for the next week to provide much relief from the heat. So to address that, here's what the city is doing. They're turning the aquatic center into a temporary cooling center. People would be able to bring their own food and reading materials, and the aquatic center would be open between 11 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon every day that a heat warning issued by the health unit remains in effect. And I've been told by the health unit that their weather alert, their heat warning, may continue into next week.
It's really difficult to understand how hot it is this early in the year. But what do people do in Windsor-Essex? We're used to it, but what are some of the ideas you heard today?
Well, Chris, first I'll tell you what I'm doing. Under the current guidelines from the province, outdoor gatherings of up to 5 people are allowed. So because it's my mom's birthday today, I'm going to be popping over for a distance outdoor gathering. We're going to be having some dinner celebrating her birthday there. But as for after that birthday, I'm just going to be inside, cranking up the AC, staying indoors, doing not much of anything. That's what I call a great weekend under the current conditions, but here's what some others in Windsor-Essex have planned.
I'm going to be outside anyway, so I'm going to be spending it in the garden center, just getting my gardening on.
Is that where you work?
I work there, yeah. So I'm going to be spending all my hours there. Maybe get a farmer's tan, I don't know, we'll see. I might have to turn on the hose every once in a while, run through the sprinkler a little bit, who knows?
Ice cream in the pool. That's it. That's all you need is ice cream in the pool. That's it.
That's all you need,
That's all you need, ice cream in the pool. That's one of the first rules that you got to adhere by. During the summer, you got to get ice cream once a week.
Yeah, I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't do the ice cream. Staying hydrated and fishing. Pretty much that's my plan to beat the heat this year, and this week in particular.
And to clarify, that heat warning in effect definitely remaining active for Saturday and Sunday, and again, it may continue into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as well. Now, the city also reminding people that Windsor Water World is open for people experiencing homelessness as a cooling center for that subsection of people. In terms of how to stay safe, how to keep cool as this weather keeps getting hot, Environment Canada advising people to check on your older friends and neighbors. Make sure they're drinking lots of water. Limit your outdoor activities to the cooler parts of the day, and of course for yourself, drink tons of water. Chris.
Thanks, Sanjay, and a big happy birthday to Pri from all of us here back at the office. The jobless rate in Windsor held steady at 10.6% last month. It remains the second highest rate among major cities in Canada, behind only St. Catharines, Niagara. Canada's unemployment rate moved up a notch last month. Today's number from Statistics Canada put the jobless rate at 8.2%. That's up from 8.1%. StatsCan says May marked the second consecutive month of job losses, with a drop of 68,000 positions, mostly part-time. Ongoing COVID-19 restrictions and shutdowns are seen as the chief cause. Nonetheless, economists expect things will improve over the coming months as provinces loosen those restrictions and they reopen economic activity. Analysts are also encouraged by the accelerating rollout of vaccines. In the U.S., the economy added almost 560,000 jobs, and unemployment's dipped below 6%. Increasing calls within Canada and internationally to investigate possible burial sites at residential schools across the country. At the same time, the federal government is increasing its call for a formal apology from the Roman Catholic Church. CBC's Olivia Stefanovic has the latest.
As a Catholic, I am deeply disappointed by the position that the Catholic Church has taken.
Stark words from the Prime Minister, adding pressure on the Vatican to take responsibility for its role in the residential school era.
I think it's going to be a really important moment for all of us, particularly Catholics across the country, to reach out in our local parishes, to reach out to bishops and cardinals, and make it clear that we expect the Church to take up and step up.
The Catholic Church ran more than half of the schools, but it's the only one that has not made a formal apology.
We wanted the Pope to come to Canada.
The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations wants the Church to say sorry and hand over all its records.
An independent investigation is required.
But Perry Bellegarde also wants to see Ottawa launch an inquiry into all residential school sites to determine how many more burials there may be.
I hope that every Canadian now understands their role in decolonizing, in healing.
So far, the federal government is not making any commitments.
The nations and communities involved have to be at the forefront of this, and they will tell us what to do.
But the Prime Minister did say his government is open to international participation. Experts at the United Nations are calling for a probe into the deaths and disappearances of Indigenous children from residential schools. There are also demands for the International Criminal Court to take a look into the matter. This as people across the country continue to gather at memorials like this one at Parliament Hill for those who died at residential schools. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
Tributes and memorials continue around Canada as the remains of up to 215 children were found in Kamloops. Here in Windsor, homeowners tying ribbons in support for the victims and for their families.
As an Indigenous woman in Canada, I'm of mixed ancestry. I'm Korean Polish. My family descends from Onion Lake, Saskatchewan. I want to stand in solidarity with my brothers and sisters across the nation, across the world, to show that those spirits need to be honored and action needs to be taken. We need to search the residential schools and bring them all home. I've heard a lot of conversations start up at the end of my driveway. I've seen lots of people stop and take pictures. We've had lots of vehicles stopping throughout the day and looking at the display here. So it seems to be striking conversation, which is what's needed right now. I have 215 ribbons altogether. This is in support of Lacey George. She came up with the monument at Assumption Church and had the community gather and honor the spirits. I personally would just like to send my condolences to all the families, all the survivors of the residential schools. My heart goes out to every single one of you. Today I wear yellow in honor of Chantal Moore, who was brutally killed during a wellness check. I encourage everyone to wear yellow today in her memory. Right now, with everything that's coming to light, the people are speaking out. They're mad, they're angry, they're disappointed, they're saddened. You know, a lot of heartbroken people in the community, and more people are understanding that it's time. We have that opportunity now to speak up and be heard.
If you're looking for support in the wake of these stories, the Indian Residential School Crisis Line has been set up to provide assistance to survivors and others. That number is 1-866-925-4419, and it operates 24 hours a day. We take a live look outside where we see the flags continuing to fly a half-mast in honor of the discovery that was found. Colette Kennedy comes up next. We'll take a look at that forecast. Premier Doug Ford says he, along with public health, are extremely disappointed to hear some school boards are passing on outdoor graduation ceremonies. In Windsor-Essex, the public school board says that graduation is going to be online this year. The Catholic school board says there hasn't been a decision yet. Ford adding that with weeks left to plan, school boards should do all they can to give students the send-off that they rightfully deserve. Colette Kennedy joins us here now. We had a bit of an impersonation earlier in the show. Sanjay giving his best forecast or tips and tricks on what to do to keep safe. It's warm out there, eh?
Yeah, and I thought he did a great job. He don't need me here. But yeah, really it started today, Chris, and this is going to continue. We knew this was coming. The heat warnings have been issued by Environment Canada. It's kind of interesting that, yes, it's just here towards Windsor, Chatham-Kent region, but you know what? It's not like a little further east that's conditions aren't the same. They really are. It's southern eastern Ontario, even beyond that. So we all need to take it easy. Humidex near 40, and we'll find our highs. Yes, we already know that today, 30s. But even the overnight lows, you just don't really get the relief because we're talking about the lows being near 20 degrees. In fact, that's where it's going to be tonight. So over the next few days, it carries on into next week. Mid next week, we'll start to see some changes. You see those Humidex values, and it doesn't necessarily mean the higher the temperature, the higher the Humidex, because it has to do with the dew points too. So even on Monday, temperature drops a degree, but we still have a very high Humidex value. So all kinds of things we need to do to really watch and take care of ourselves, and hydration is one of them. Break, stay out of the sun. I do just want to remind everyone, this is just if your outside air temperature is at 27, and we know we're over that, how quickly a car heats up. I just want that to little bit of a reminder to everybody. We cannot absolutely obviously be leaving children in cars, but you can't leave pets in cars even for a few moments either, because it is just too dangerous. There's our temperature, 30 degrees. The wind's having an impact there, and we're seeing 25 for Chatham-Kent, 30 in Sarnia. And again, you know, if you want a little bit of relief, yeah, closer to the lake shore, along the shores of Lake Erie, we're going to be finding that temperature tomorrow in the upper 20s as opposed to pushing into the 30s. So far, Humidex value at 33. It will become much more significant than that, as we were just looking at. And here's the other thing to go along with this. Although the air doesn't feel dry, our conditions are dry. So we aren't looking at any systems that are going to be pushing through and delivering any kind of relief here. So Saturday, full on sunshine, maybe a few little high, thin cirrus clouds into Sunday. Now, late Sunday, watch this. We'll get a bit more cloud cover coming in. That's really for Monday, and that is why I kept the temperature down just a little bit as we do go into Monday. So Saturday, there you are with that 32 degrees. Look at those overnight temperatures. Taking a look at Sunday as well, that's when that Humidex pops up towards 40, and into Monday, that cloud deck comes in, and because of the buoyant nature of the air, Chris, I started to bring in that chance for seeing some thunderstorm activity as we get into next week as well. So there would be some relief.
Could be some action there too, especially with the clouds and the storms we get out here. Be neat to see, but you know, that heat, it's good when it breaks. It's part of living out here.
It absolutely, I know. It's like, yeah, we kind of get used to this, right?
Yeah.
It's just a little early.
Yeah, it's like winter driving, right? Same idea. We remember how to learn on the drive of the ice, and all the same thing with sunscreen at this point here. Enjoy the weekend, Colette.
You as well.
A herd of 15 wandering elephants now found wandering near a town, and what might seem like a beautiful sight has residents staying inside. More when we return. The SpaceX Falcon rocket launched yesterday from the Kennedy Space Center.
Ignition. Liftoff. Go Falcon, go Dragon.
It's currently en route to the International Space Station, a resupply mission expected to dock sometime tomorrow. Now, on board are solar panels and food for the 7 astronauts that are living on the ISS. The payload, it also includes thousands of tiny sea creatures, commonly known as water bears, as well as 128 baby bobtail squids that glow in the dark. Researchers, they just want to see how they cope with zero gravity and the extreme space environment. A herd of 15 wandering elephants has now reached the outskirts of the city of Kunming in southwest China. Now, the city has a population of 7 million people, and they are being told to stay indoors. Experts have been trying to divert the elephants by blocking roads with large construction vehicles. They're even luring them in a different direction with food. It's not clear why the elephants made that 500-kilometer trek to the city from a nature reserve. There's drones and videos that are capturing their journey over the past several months. And that's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Make sure you stay cool this weekend any way that you can.